All right, we'll call the meeting to order. Present, we have 3 members, and begin with the public hearing on amended declaratory resolution number 2026-2. Let's see here.
Richie, do you want me to explain the purpose of the public hearing?
So if you would, please. I was, on that resolution, I know that resolution.
Sure. So essentially the purpose of the public hearing is, it regards the amending and expanding the existing, Austin residential economic development area, and doing that by consolidating the Yorkwoods Crossing subdivision residential housing development area into that economic development area. Just for purposes of clarity, the 2 current residential TIF areas there, the Austin residential allocation area, as well as the Yorkwoods residential allocation area. Those 2 TIF areas are still separate and not combined, but by consolidating the 2 residential areas into one, that does mean both of those TIF areas will be part of the same economic development area. And the reason that the city is going through this process is because Indiana Finance Authority, which is purchasing bonds from the city, is requiring that the city do this, given the fact that both of those residential TIF areas are being pledged to pay debt service on the bonds. And so that is, precisely the reason why we're doing that. This is obviously the final approval step. The process started with you all at a special meeting last month in April, adopting the declaratory resolution. After that, of course, the Advisory Planning Commission adopted its order. The City Council adopted its resolution a couple weeks ago. And so after this public hearing, the final step will be you all adopting the confirmatory resolution, which essentially confirms what you already did in the declaratory resolution. And when it comes time to consider the confirmatory resolution, the declaratory resolution you already adopted is attached to that as Exhibit A, which has maps and legal descriptions and other relevant exhibits. So the public hearing, is advertised in the Chronicle Times more than 10 days, 14 days to be precise, from the date of this meeting. And, with the public hearing, the purpose is to hear from the public if they have any questions or comments or concerns regarding this consolidation of the 2 residential areas into one. So I think at this point, I would recommend opening the floor to see if there's any public comments or questions.
Okay, we'll do that. Any comments? We're not going to have any comments, so do we close then and?
Yeah, formally close the public hearing.
Do it through vote?
Yeah, I'd recommend doing it by motion to make it clear.
Yeah.
I make a motion to close the hearing.
I second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passed. And then we'll call to order our regular scheduled meeting. And first up is approval of minutes from the April 22nd, 2026 meeting. Those have been presented. Any corrections or comments?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from April.
I second.
All right, all in favor? Aye. All right. Any opposed? Motion passed. Alright. And next up, is financial matters. You've previously been, presented the fund report for your review. And then, so we'll move on to the approval of the claims that have been presented to you. Any questions on the claims that have been presented?
I'll make a motion to accept the claims as presented.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passed. And then next up, we'll have Baker Tilly presenting our annual TIP report.
Good morning, Commission. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for your time this morning. So in front of you, you should have a packet with the Baker Tilly Municipal Advisor letterhead there. And what this is a report on the TIP for the city. And it's, we like to do this on an annual basis to give a comprehensive look at where the TIP is with the most recent information that we have. If you want to skip ahead to page 1, that's where the meat of it starts. And so on page 1, this is where we start to give background information on the Austin allocation area number 1, which is part of the larger Austin economic development area. And so we have history on the outstanding bonds, both ones that have already matured and ones that are currently outstanding, as well as the contracts from 2015 that are still outstanding. Information on that is on page 1. Additionally, we reference when area number 1 was established and its expiration being January 1st, 2040, which is the same expiration date or maturity date as the 2022 bonds. Moving on to page 2. As you may know, the Austin allocation area number 1 collects both real and personal property TIP. Page 2 is showing the real property tax increment. We do model out all the impacts in this report for Senate Enrolled Act 1 from last year that introduced additional deductions for 1% and 2% properties. And so as you can see, in 2026, we are estimating a collection of TIP is roughly $223,000, and it will slightly decrease going towards full implementation of Senate Enrolled Act 1 through 2031, but not too terrible impacts there. Moving on to page 3. And feel free to stop me at any point if you have any questions as I roll through this. Moving on to page 3, this is where we show the personal property from the Pepsi plant in area number 1. And just from the personal property for Pepsi, we in 2026 are estimating about $569,000. On page 4, we have a combined schedule that shows both real and personal property. Personal property does make up about 72% of the TIP in the area. And as Pepsi is a designated taxpayer, that through the declaratory resolution that initially set up the area, the designated taxpayer will, after 2037, expire. So you can see in 2038 and 2039, the total TIP does drop off as we no longer will be collecting TIP from Pepsi. On to page 5. Page 5 and 6 are the 2 installment loans from 2015. You can see footnote 1 references that these forward-looking interest rates are estimated because the way these loans were set up is that every 3 years, the rate will reset based on what the current 1-year treasury yield is. And it will reset in July, so we'll update at that time once we know what the new rate will be. But previously it was 3.99. Today I was checking, it looks about 3.8 for the 1-year yield. So it will likely bump up to closer to 7.3%. Thankfully, with these loans being on the smaller side, the interest, it will go up, but only a couple $1,000s a year for each payment. And then it will reset again for years from then. So that is page 5 and 6 for those installment loans. On page 7, there is a outstanding bond from 2022. I believe it was used for renovations to City Hall. It was initially $3.345 million. But now today we are looking at an outstanding par amount of about $2.8 million. The annual payments are roughly $300,000, and we did wrap it around that personal property dropping off. So in the later years, you'll see in 39 and 2040, it does go down to about $95,000 in annual payments. On page 8, we do show a comparison of the tax increment and the outstanding obligations. You can see on the second to last column, the estimated tax increment remaining. This is the dollars left over that is available to the RDC for projects, capital projects, incentives, anything benefiting the area. And more recently, a few years ago, the state legislature did allow for public safety, for those dollars to be used towards public safety, so police and fire. And even with that upcoming rate reset on the installment loans, you can see on that last column, there is plenty of coverage for the additional interest from those installment loans. For page 9, we do show a historical collection. So it has been fairly steady and increasing in more recent years. So that is always good to see. Page 10, we have the current balance information. Thank you, Chris, for sending that over the other day, for Austin area number 1. And then moving on, we do look at area number 2, which is still part of the larger economic development area, but it does not have bonds pledged to its TIF. So therefore, it currently, under current state law, does not have an expiration date, so it will keep going in perpetuity until you pledge TIF towards bonds or until the state legislature decides otherwise. So that is page 11 with a little bit of background information on that. On page 12, this is a look at the real property. There's no personal property in area number 2 at the moment. It is impacted a little bit more by SCA 1 through 2031. There are more 1% properties in this area that even if you're not collecting TIF on it, the incremental AV, just with the way the formulas work with SCA 1, it will end up going down a little bit. And there are some 2% properties as well, where you'll see the real impact there. And then we do have more background information on the Austin residential economic development area, beginning on page 13, that Matt kind of gave some additional information on as well. The first residential area was created in 2021, and more recently, last year, the Yorkwoods Crossing area was created. And we are hopefully going to be combining that today officially. And there's also additional background information on the bonds that we were discussing as well. On page 14, we take a look at the tax increment here. And especially with it being a residential area with primarily 1% properties, it will see pretty significant impacts from SEA 1 going through 2031. I will note that this schedule here only includes development as of Hay 2026. No future development is considered in this schedule. So if, further new homes are created and built, these numbers will look better as well. Page 15 is the account balance information for the allocation area, for the residential allocation area. And then page 16, we like to include this schedule just to give a handy dandy little guide to a visual to help explain tax increment. We like to have this be as a reference as well. So always like including that. And then page 17, this is partially connected to the pass-through letter that I handed Richie before the meeting began. This schedule is a look at all of the overlapping taxing units. And if we were to pass through $10 million of the incremental captured value, the tax rate on scenario 2 there, the tax rate would go down 24 cents, but I want to note that since the tax rate is over $3 and there are caps, the $1, $2, $3 caps on properties, most taxpayers wouldn't see any benefit, even if you did pass through $10 million of AV to the overlapping taxing units. And I would especially note that the TIF that you would collect would go down $300,000, but only $6,500 of additional levy would go to the overlapping taxing units. So in terms of bang for your buck, you're getting more by capturing that TIF than having the AV pass through to the overlapping taxing units. So that is the tax increment report. And for the pass-through letter, Jason was telling me that does need to be voted on. You need to make a determination. We, on the letter, have it as $0 being passed through. And based on your determination, you can sign and mail that out to especially the auditor, but also the overlapping taxing units before June 15th. And if the auditor doesn't receive it by June 15th, the new legislation this year has the auditor will pass through 5% automatically. So it's very important to meet that June 15th date so that you ensure you capture all your increment that you want.
Richard, it's a letter out.
Yeah, right.
Have you still on some?
No, not yet. Yeah. Wait for that. So you do have a print on letterhead for us? Okay, good.
Awesome.
All right, so this is, as he spoke about, the annual letter we do each year to show that we're doing the pass-through on this for the overlapping districts. The overlapping districts are the Southeastern Indiana Solid Waste Management, Scott County Council, City of Austin, Scott County Public Library, Jennings Township, and Scott County School District 1. Everybody remember this? Any questions on that? Okay. So, none. Entertain a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve it. We have 0 pass-through.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. All right. Any opposed? Motion passed, and then I'll sign the official one we have on letterhead at the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions on the reports of any sorts? Anything like that? I always like this last page. It's good. I remember telling Jason a few years ago, let's have that in there. Stress that point because it doesn't make sense when you think of it simply, but the numbers work out to where we capture a lot of money by having the TIF organized, and should it not exist, then very little would actually trickle down to the local districts here. So fantastic. All right. Okay, next up is president's reports. And I really have nothing to report. There hasn't been any kind of activity of any sort that I've been involved with over the last month. So then we can move on to committee reports. Is there anything?
Ask Stacy. Can she hear us?
I don't have anything.
I don't have her.
Okay.
Stacy.
All right. So the next up, we have old business. And I'll just comment that the notice of request for proposals for 85 East Main Street has been, or actually is being published today. And then will be published again on June 3rd. And just to read this here in the meeting, so just more awareness of what's going on. We're requesting proposals from qualified developers for the purchase and redevelopment of the property owned by the commission and located at 85 East Main Street in Austin. We're seeking proposals for development that will enhance the downtown area and promote economic growth and community revitalization. Proposals may include commercial, mixed use, residential, retail, office, hospitality, and or other compatible redevelopment concepts consistent with the goals of the commission and the city of Austin. Any additional information or specifics can be obtained by contacting the clerk treasurer's office. There's specific details. I'm not reading this verbatim, so this is not the official notice of wording, but you can see that in the paper for more information. Just want to get that out and let everybody know that it has been publicized and will be out in today's paper. Does anybody have business? Or good question?
Stacy
Okay.
sent in a report.
Okay.
She says, we're working on the second coffee and conversation event and gathering volunteers for the plant swap. Those are two staples and also talk, I'm sure it says talk, not chalk, in the park for kids. Maybe it is chalk, in the park
Chalk,
for kids.
yes.
Chalk, okay. In the park for kids in the community during the summer. So those are the events for the event committee.
Thank you, Stacey. All right. Any other old business? Jeremy?
Yeah, I'll kind of run through a couple of things. For the US 31 storm sewer repair, remember we applied for the community project funding grant. Republican Hutchins' office has on her website listed that 4 projects have cleared the House Appropriations Committee. This storm sewer is one of those projects. There is still quite a few steps that need to be passed, but we are one of 4 projects that are continuing to move on.
Nice.
So hopefully we hear more about that soon. Another thing, a couple of us walked with the environmental team. We walked the stream from Audrey Lane down to York Road. There's that stream there that we believe has some, it's kind of been degraded or capacity has been filled in some spots. So we walked it with the environmental team. We should have a summary from them back on what we can do to rehab that stream here in the next, I think by the end of the week, I should have something. So we'll kind of report back with things we can do to clean up that stream, maybe replace a couple culverts here throughout it, what we can do to revitalize that stream. The last thing I have is my office is currently working on the environmental report for we are looking at rural development grant. The city right now has an item agreed order for the wastewater. We need to start making some improvements to that. The best case scenario is going through a rural development grant. We are working, the PER, which is a preliminary engineering report, was completed in 2024. We are updating that and working on the environmental report to get that through rural development so we can look at getting a grant through them. we're making some headway on it, and hope to have that completed rather quickly, because I think that's a big push as items been on us for the agreeable, so. That's it.
Appreciate it. Any other old business? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to new business. And first up, we'll have two resolutions that have already been kind of alluded to, that we're coming to. And so we'll read those by, approve those by title only. And the first one is going to be amending and expanding our current TIF residential areas. And so I'm going to read that, and then we'll bring it up for approval. Resolution number 2026-R-3. Confirmatory resolution of the Austin Redevelopment Commission amending and expanding the Austin Residential Economic Development Area and consolidating the York Woods Crossing Subdivision Residential Housing Development Area into the Austin Redevelopment Economic Development Area. Approving an amendment to the original economic development plan and other matters related thereto. Any questions? Hearing none.
I make a motion to approve.
Okay.
I'll second
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Motion passed. And then the second, where we're pledging that tax increment towards the bonding for the York Woods project. So I'll read that by title only. Resolution number 2026-R-4. A resolution of the Austin Redevelopment Commission pledging tax increment and authorizing other matters thereto for York Woods Crossing project. Any motions?
I'll make a motion to pass the resolution number 2026-R-4.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passed. All right. The next one is authorization to execute deed for transfer property to Development Austin LLC. And do you have something on that?
Yeah, I can explain it briefly.
Yeah, I don't have paperwork on that.
So just for purposes of public record, we're talking about two parcels that are currently owned by the Redevelopment Commission, and those are parcel numbers 72-04-500-021.000-003. And then the second parcel is 72-04-001-900-020.000-003. I tried to memorize those and I couldn't.
I hope you didn't.
So basically, those are the two parcels that are, currently in the York Woods Crossing residential TIF. And those are also the two parcels of property, that are the site of, the public infrastructure improvements and the, single family housing, that Develop Austin LLC, is constructing and is being financed as part of this bond issuance with the Indiana Finance Authority that's closing in a couple weeks. And so, I know that the transfer of those two parcels are, I believe, covered by a development agreement between the Redevelopment Commission and the developer. And so the development agreement, I believe, speaks to these parcels being transferred by end of September. Now, with this upcoming bond closing, Indiana Finance Authority is requiring that this taxpayer agreement between the city redevelopment commission and the developer, be recorded on the day of closing. And so because of that, the land really needs to be transferred to Development Austin LLC on or before the closing on the bonds, which is June 18th of this year. Since the title to the property needs to be in their name before that taxpayer agreement gets recorded. And the reason for that really is so that the taxpayer, since the taxpayer agreement attaches to the property, you want those parcels to be in the developer's name first, so that way the taxpayer agreement is enforceable as to the developer. And just, I know the taxpayer agreement's been talked about before, but essentially the purpose of the taxpayer agreement is it serves as a backstop in case the TIF revenues that are being pledged from the Austin residential TIF and Yorkwoods crossing TIF, if for some reason those TIF revenues are not big enough or sufficient to pay debt service on the bonds, at that point, the developer under the taxpayer agreement is required to pay taxpayer payments to make up that shortfall. And so, again, that's why it's important that, you know, despite what the development agreement says, that you all make a motion to authorize Richie as president to go ahead and sign a deed to transfer those two parcels to Development Austin LLC in order to, in furtherance of the Yorkwoods Crossing project and the upcoming bond closing with Indiana Finance Authority. So if you all would be, and I believe Josh, as your city attorney, will prepare that deed. And so, you know, as far as the motion goes, I would recommend a motion authorizing the president of the Redevelopment Commission to sign a deed for the Yorkwoods Crossing parcels to develop Austin LLC.
If I could add one point of clarity, there may be other documents other than a deed, such as a sale disclosure.
Right.
Or some other documents that a title company may require signature of the seller, being the city redevelopment commission, to also sign. So if the motion could be a little bit broader.
Sure, of course.
A little bit broader.
So I would recommend that a motion be made authorizing president of the commission to execute a deed and any and all closing documents necessary to transfer the two Yorkwoods Crossing parcels from the Redevelopment Commission to develop Austin LLC.
And one other point of clarification.
Okay.
Thank you for that. I think that's appropriate. Just for clarity, I think you all are aware that the total property, the two parcels that you mentioned, encompass about almost 300 acres, 290 some acres. Pursuant to the development agreement, we're only buying about, plus or minus, about 35 of those acres. So we're not buying all 300. We're in the process now of having the surveyors calculate that precise acreage pursuant to the development agreement. So we expect to have a legal description well in advance of the closing to attach to the deed that will specify the exact acreage. And then, of course, the development agreement also specifies the dollar amount of those acres being floodplain versus non-floodplain, and there's different dollars associated with those. We'll have all that calculated in advance to align with that legal description, so that the purchase price paid at closing is accurate and in compliance with the development agreement.
Yeah. So in other words, it won't be those exact parcel numbers that were described
Right.
in entirety,
Portions
of those, right,
Yes.
right.
Okay. We're good with all
Yeah.
Okay, I make a motion to authorize Richie to proceed in that transfer
Is it
as.
as described?
As, yes, as described.
I second it.
All right. Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passed. Okay. And any other new business? New business?
After the meeting, Richie and then Kelly, I will get some closing documents signed from you all, the mayor and Chris, in connection with the bond closing. But that can be after the meeting, so.
Okay. No new business? And the redundant category of other business. Any other business? And, okay, so our next regular scheduled meeting is June 24th, 2026 at 8 a.m. If there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passed. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your hard work.